Like many of you, I have a lot of questions about this post-election landscape that there's not really anybody that can answer those for us. And so I have turned to my trusty Pendulum, which is one of the skills and tools that I work with fairly regularly to um, help me figure out when to take right turns and left turns in making decisions with what I'm doing in my life, and also when I'm working with clients and helping them out. So I decided to use my pendulum and do pendulum checking on certain questions about this post-election landscape to get some more specifics so we're all not going crazy. And I wrote them all out and I did them. And so now I would like to go ahead and share that with you. Now, I think it's probably a good idea for me to say at the front end of this, this is for entertainment purposes only. The other thing I will say about pendulum work is that it clocks in at the potentials that are happening in the window of time that the pendulum check is happening. And one of the things I've noticed is some of this information is changing over a period of time. So the information I'm going to give to you is for this window of time. Could it change? Potentially. So whenever you're working with any divination device, you want to be very specific about your questions. And so, of course, we're going to name this the pendulum check for post-election landscape of the American presidency 2024 into 2025. And just so you know, whenever I do pendulum checking, my midpoint is a pendulum that swings straight up and down. The no area is to the right, and the yes area is to the left. And for those of you who do not know how a pendulum check works, this has to do with how the pendulum is responding to the heart chakra magnetics, that when you ask it a question, your heart chakra will click magnetically into a positive sign or click magnetically into a negative sign, and the pendulum picks up on that and is able to give an answer. So our job is to ask as good and clear questions as we possibly can. So the most obvious questions are the brain duality questions we've been asking is, does Trump take office as our next president? And the pendulum came back and said no. Now, what you need to know is that I have been asking these two questions about Trump and Harris, as far as Harris taking office as the next president versus Trump taking office as the next president. The pendulum, every single day when I ask, the pendulum has stabilized for the Trump answer right there. Now, what you need to know is the morning after the election, both Trump, the pendulum swung in the no zone for Trump, and the pendulum also swung in the no zone for Harris. And every single day after the election, since I've been asking, her arrow has gradually been moving like this. And as of this morning, it's just a fair skosh of left of center, basically. So her arrow is in movement, is in play, and Trump's is not. It's sitting on the no zone. So then we want to ask, if it's moving more and more in the direction of Harris, we want to ask, when does Harris take office as the next president? Is it immediately? No. Is it in 1 month? No. Is it in 2 months? No. When I got to the January 20th, 2025, which is Inauguration Day, it's swinging pretty strongly in the yes direction, but it's not there on a solid yes. When I ask if it's another date, that's a solid yes. When I ask if it was February, it is not. It is sometime in January 2025 as far as the potentials are showing. When will we as the American public know that Harris takes office as president? Are we going to find out in November of 2024? No, we are not. Are we going to find out in December of 2024? No, we are not. Are we going to find out in January of 2025? There was a solid yes on this, and on the other, there was a no. Okay, so let's move on to the next page. All right. Then one of the big questions that's been going on is about Biden handing the presidency over to her. And so I asked, will Biden hand her the office? And the answer was a solid no with a voice, and I could hear someone say he can't. I think it has to do with the optics. It has to do with, yeah, just in the current situation that we're in. He in good faith cannot do that right now, and have the full backing of the American public. I think it would contribute to the split. And that's the feeling that I got off of that pendulum check. Are there? And then it occurred to me, hey, if things are so upside down, they could even be more upside down. So are there other presidential outcomes besides Harris or Trump? And that also came back as a no. Now, obviously, if the pendulum is saying yes on Harris, then we've got to start asking questions about, okay, what is going on with legal movement about a potential recount or something of that sort. We don't know. So ask the pendulum, are there legal proceedings about the election in the works from Harris's team? And I got to tell you, my pendulum went bananas. Not only was that a yes, it was a solid yes. There was so much energy in this. The pendulum, that was one of the most solid yeses out of this entire pendulum check. So then, because we want to find out, the Harris team, who are they building a case against? Is it Musk? And that came back as a very solid yes. Is it against Trump? That came back as a solid yes. Then we want to know, are there others? Is there another one? And it came back as a yes. And then I went to another no, a next other, and it was no. So it seems to me they're building a case against three people right here. And then as of today, November 12th, 2024, when as I'm recording this, does Harris's legal team have all the evidence right now that they need to file legal action about the election or fraud? The answer came back as no. They don't have all the evidence yet. And then asking, will they be able to gather that evidence? What was really interesting is the pendulum went like this. It was swinging and swinging and swinging, and it went very gradually to a solid yes. And that's what I'm showing here. Like it swung and swung and swung. Now some of these others, the pendulum sometimes will just go yes and it'll swing, or it'll go no and it'll swing. But this one about the evidence question, it was like which tells me that's the process. There's a process going on right now. That's really important information. Then to give us peace of mind so we know what's going on, will we, the American public, see legal movement? And the pendulum said, no, not really. So then I wanted to know when, if we're not going to see the movement, when are the major legal movements happening that we may or may not see? When does legal movement or evidence collection happen? And I check the calendar. I know how to run my pendulum over a calendar to locate when things are going to happen. What was really interesting is that when I initially did this, and it was happening right about that same time, the first one was visible. It was on Saturday, November the 9th at 2024, and I'm pretty sure that had to be the Alfie Oaks raid. I mean, that was pretty obvious. Now, what's interesting is there's two more coming in that the pendulum is indicating. One that happens in the window of Thursday to Sunday, November the 14th to November the 17th. And then there's another one that happens in the window of Friday to Sunday, November 22nd to 24th. Now, if you notice with all of these, it looks to me like these are filings that happen at the end of the week, and then the evidence collection happens over the weekend. These are end of week weekend windows. Then I pendulum checked all the way through November, all the way through December, all the way through January, and the only three evidence collections were here, here, and here, and then they are done. I asked about a fourth evidence collection or legal action going on. Pendulum said there might be a fourth, but that's it. And the legal movement on this, we won't necessarily see it happening, but it is happening. And then here's the deal, folks. It was very clearly came back from the Pendulum and from Spirit Team. And then we don't hear anything else. It's going to go silent. So this is I think this is what we all need to be prepared for. There was a flurry here. We may or may not see something here. We may or may not see something here. And then we will not hear anything. We're not going to hear anything. We are going to get left hanging. When I talk with Spirit Team about it, the entire time that I was doing this pendulum check, they kept saying, this is an 11th hour thing, Dana. This is an 11th hour thing. This happens at the last minute. And why? Because it's about locking down irrefutable evidence and applying it with particular timing. Now remember, Harris is a prosecutor and she is a master technical acumen. I mean, look what she did at the debate. Look what she said in the concession speech. And she left us with that visual of her arm as she walked away out of the concession speech. Like, she is a tactician. And so if telling us what's going on is going to impede or harm her ability to do this, to proceed with this, she's not going to tell us anything. So we're going, like, what my pendulum check is showing me here and talking with Spirit Team is, we literally, I think we're going to have to hang in there for about 45 days. Christmas might be really grim this year, but I think it's going to turn out okay.